Hi, it's Glenda here again. And if you're like me, you may be wondering how many of the 5 biggest mistakes managers make in dealing with team conflict you may be making right now. So let's take a look. For each of the mistakes, we'll look at why do we do it, why it's a mistake, and what we're going to talk about in the webinar that's going to help you avoid these mistakes in future. 1, avoiding dealing with conflict or hoping that it will simply go away. Why do we do this? Well, you have a lot on your plate. You've already got a lot of work to do. You don't need more. And sometimes leaving things alone, people are able to resolve things on their own. But I've discovered the biggest reason many managers avoid dealing with conflict is that they don't want to make things worse. They're worried about that. So why is it a mistake to avoid dealing with conflict? Well, if you're here, you probably know. A conflict that starts out between 2 people can quickly spread through the whole team, and suddenly everybody's in an uproar and no work is getting done. What we're going to talk about on the webinar is a peaceful and harmonious way to resolve conflict on a team. Managers who've worked with me are amazed that they've been able to guide team members to resolve even heated conflicts in a truly collaborative and effective way. 2, trying to deal with conflict in the heat of the moment when it surfaces. Why do we do this? Conflict often simmers just below the surface of a team. So when it finally emerges and is visible, it can seem like a great opportunity to get all the cards on the table and to resolve the conflict once and for all. Why is this a mistake? In order to resolve conflict, people need to be on relatively neutral emotional ground. When conflict erupts, it's like they're stuck in a hole, and everything they say from that hole just puts the other person in a hole and digs that hole deeper. What we'll talk about on the webinar is how to help people get out of their holes and onto that neutral ground, so they have the capacity to engage in a truly productive way. 3 is telling the people involved to resolve the conflict on their own. Why do we do this? Well, the people on your team are adults, and it seems reasonable to expect that adults should be able to resolve problems. After all, they are literally on the same team. Why is this a problem? Because by the time you discover a conflict, it usually has grown beyond the scale that people can deal with it on their own. If they coulda, they woulda. So what we're going to talk about in the webinar is how you can guide your team members to resolve the conflict themselves, and in the process, build their capacity to do this more of the time without you there. 4, you deciding the solution. This can often seem like the fastest and easiest way to resolve a conflict. You listen to both sides, and then you decide, based on your experience and expertise, what's the best way forward. Why can this be a problem? It's highly unlikely that the solution you come up with is going to be fully satisfying to both of the people involved. That means at least one of them is likely to try, consciously or unconsciously, to undermine or sabotage the solution to prove that it wasn't the right answer. Also, you're training your team to come to you to resolve conflicts and to make decisions, rather than increasing their sense of responsibility and initiative to do their work themselves. The good news is that the solution to this problem is exactly the same as the previous one. By you helping your team members work out their own solution, you increase their capacity to do this on their own without you, and therefore reduce your workload. 5, not knowing how to fully and effectively resolve conflict permanently, but instead just putting a Band-Aid on it. What happens for managers who don't know how to do this is that they think they've resolved a problem, and then boom, it shows up somewhere else. Like an employee who's consistently late, and when confronted about it, suddenly starts calling in sick more often. Unresolved conflict is like an illness that's not fully cured, and so symptoms keep cropping up again. The good news is that you're taking the next step to actually learning how to do this effectively. In the webinar, we'll talk about the 8 key stages of helping employees resolve their own conflicts. Thank you for being with me as we looked at the 5 biggest mistakes managers make in dealing with conflict on their teams. This is Glenda Mattinson, and I look forward to having you at the upcoming webinar. See you there.